Right, welcome back, guys. Now, still busy with session management. So, first, what did we do? Imported audio into our session, right? Then we added a master fader. Then we renamed our tracks. So now we are going to color our tracks and we're going to group our tracks. The advantages of this part of navigation again, and now further into mixing, should I say, not the process of mixing, but further into doing steps that will make mixing even easier when we actually start grouping, right? So let's first speak about coloring, right? There's a concept to it more than anything. So let me put it like this. In every form of steps, in stems that you get from an artist or whatever, you're going to have a group of tracks that basically kind of represent the same function. For example, let's think about the drum kit. The main function of the drum kit speaks to the groove of the track, right? Now, the drum kit is one unit, right? And what I mean by one unit, I speak of the sense that the instruments or separates that speak to the drum kit work together, right, to add a groove. So they are basically considered as one unit. And in that unit of a drum kit, you're going to have a kick. And in this case, we have, let's put it like this. In this case, for our drum kit, we have a kick, a snare, overheads. I like to put that as the last track within my drum kit group unit. You understand? Then we have a tom 1, tom 2. Sometimes you're going to have a hi-hat in there. You're going to have a kick in. You're going to have a kick out, which speaks to two mics that were connected that were directed to the kick to record the kick, which will be kick in, kick out. Then you're going to have a snare top, snare bottom. Two mics directed to a snare top part, which is the snare skin, and the bottom, which is the snare rattle. Then you're going to have tom 1, tom 2, floor tom, right? Or you're going to have high, mid, and floor tom, right? And in some cases, you're going to have a room mic. In some cases, you're going to have overheads. Overheads, in this case, we have them ourselves right here. And overheads are basically the two mics that point from the top view, should I say, and record the entire drum kit. But in general consensus, their main aim is to record the symbols of the drum kit, right? And those is what we would basically then combine together and consider as one group, and that would be our drum kit. Yeah, that's very important to understand that. So currently we have a drum kit that only has a kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, tambourine, and overheads, right? And any percussive instruments that I would have, even if I had a congo, a bongo, or etc., I would add it in here or create another group on its own, right? And create a group that is percussion or percussive instruments. Let's say maybe you have congo, bongos, if there's a lot, you understand, of different percussive instruments, then you can create their own group. But if you have like one, you can literally, like I've done with the tambourine, add it into your drum as a package. Yeah? And what you want to do in that sense now is, this is in the stage of coloring, because you are basically now associating a color with songs, with separates that have the same function within the song, right? And in this case, I'm only concentrating on my drum kit in this case. So I'm going to select my drum kit tracks, right, or my drum kit separates, which in this case is kick. And if I press control, it allows me to select tracks that are not adjacent to one another, right? Or if I click on my overheads, I can click on overheads on the nameplate, press shift, and then go all the way to my kick right here and click there, and that will allow me to select all the tracks that are in between these two tracks, right? So just remember that if whenever you want to select them as a group, you click on one, then press shift and go to the end like that. Or you can click on one, press control command on Mac, and then click on each of the tracks like that. Really up to you. Now, in order for you to color them, you need the color palette window, right? And how you can access the color palette window is in two cases. You can either double click on the color code or color plane right here on each track. You can just click on one like that, double click on it, and it will open the color palette window. Or another way you can go about it is to go to window, navigate your mouse all the way to the color palette option right here, and you'll have the color palette window. I generally like coloring my drums red, so I'm going to choose red. So you understand the concept behind that, right? Let's continue because this goes in further. Again, the importance of this, especially in understanding, should I put it this way, is that tracks that speak to the same function within the mix, you understand, should be grouped together, or tracks that you're going to mix that have a similarities in terms of how you're going to approach mixing them, right? You want to group together. This is generally then, let's say if you have a group of electric guitars, let's say, because whenever people record electric guitars, they might not take one take. They're going to take like two different takes. One is going to be for the left hand side, the other one will be for the right hand side whenever they do a bit of panning. For example, here I've got guitar 1 and guitar 2. If we look at them in the edit window, let's look at them in the edit window. There we go, right here. These two guitar tracks right here, as you can see them right here, right? They actually are the same, right? I also have that electric guitar right there, left and right. Again, I can use them left and right. So if I go back to my mix window, I can pan this one left, I can pan this one right in the mix. If that's your plan, that's what I'm saying, right? Now, the aim again behind coloring tracks is that whenever you are coloring, you're basically considering them as a group, right? So, for example, we have electric guitars here, literally from this point to this point. I've got electric guitars, and I'm generally going to mix them the same, you understand. I might have actually some plugins that I add in between them that are different, but if I want to mix them as a group, maybe just remove some certain frequencies, I'll have similarities in that mix, you understand. So, or in mixing those separates. So then what do I target? Then to group them together, right? In color, in this case, in color, we're still going to get to a point where we actually group them physically, should I say, right? So in this case, what I want to do is then give them the same color. So I can double click again on my color plane and then choose a color for my electric guitars, right? And I want to emphasize on this point, right? Because I've seen this happen a lot of times. When it comes to guitars, sometimes in a song, you will find electric guitars, you will find acoustic guitars, and you will find bass guitars. Guys, avoid putting those three types of instruments together, right? Yes, they are all guitars, but generally they function in different frequency ranges, and likelihood you will mix them differently. So if it is the case that you've got electric guitars, bass guitars, and acoustic guitars in one song, right? You're going to group the electric guitars together. You're going to give the electric guitars their own color. You're going to give the acoustic guitars their own color. And you're going to give the bass guitar its own color, like I'm going to do now. So I've given the electric guitars their own color, which is green. I'm going to give my bass, and I'm going to go select it first, right? And then pick a color. By selecting first, you're telling Pro Tools that this is the track I want to color, right? You can't just go pick a color, right? You need to select the track so that Pro Tools knows where to associate the color you are selecting on the color palette dialog box, right? Or the color palette window. So now let's work on our vocals. On our vocals for this track, we have 1, 2, 3 lead vocals, right? So I'm going to click on the first lead vocal, press shift and click on the last lead vocal. Then I have backing vocals. These are vocals. You're more than welcome to group them together, right? But like I said, depending on how you're going to be approaching your mix, you can also group them separately. You understand? Meaning that I'll group the lead vocals on their own and then group them and group the backing vocals on their own. Which means, and then I'm going to mix or give the lead vocals their own color, and I'm going to give the backing vocals their own color, right? So then I've selected the 3 lead vocals, and I'm going to choose blue for the lead vocals, right? Then I'm going to go click again on the first backing vocal, then shift and click on the last backing vocal and give that its own color. Let's go for purple right there, right? So now I can tell, again, part of session management, by navigating that these are my drums, these are my electric guitars, I can just easily associate which tracks basically work together, right? By not even looking at the names now, I just look at the colors. You get what I'm saying? Part of session management, making your navigation easier. Great. Let's move into grouping the tracks. Now I'm going to speak to the advantages of grouping and the benefits. You start seeing the benefits as I show you. Okay, so I've color coded my tracks, and that basically now means that the tracks that have the same color I'm going to group together. You get what I'm saying? Right? So all the drum tracks that are red, I'm going to group them together. How do we do that? Basically, we're going to select the tracks first. So I'm going to select them, right? Then I'm going to press Command or Control G. Command on Mac, sorry guys, Command on Mac, Control on Windows, right? Command G, right? Now this opens the Create Group dialog box. Very important to remember, right? Control G, right, is the shortcut that you want to remember. And first, make sure that obviously you select the tracks that you want to group together, right? And you can see here it's calling it Group 1. I just want to show you something that how to fix a problem that might take place whenever you're grouping tracks together. Okay, cool. I'm just going to cancel that. I haven't grouped them as yet. Very important to remember that. I have not grouped them as yet. Okay, cool. Let's say I still want to group all my red tracks, right? But I have only selected from here until here, right? Which is my tambourine. But I want to include my overheads, right? Obviously, I could go Control and click on that, and that would add my overheads in there. But let's say I forgot, right, to select or missed my overheads, right? And I press Command G. Now that I'm here and I realize, oh wait, I've forgotten to add my overheads. You do not need to go to cancel that out. You don't need to so that you can select it again. No, you don't. What you can do is literally come to this area right here. Now, in this area, these tracks that are currently selected, right? Kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, tambourine. As you can see, kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, tambourine are the ones that are going to be included into the group. But we also want to include our overheads. So I can go from the available tracks and click on the overheads and click on add. So now overheads will be added into the group, right? After you noticed or basically paid attention to the tracks that you want to group together and you're happy with that, you can come to the name of the group. What are we grouping here? It's our drum kit. So I'm going to name that group Drum Kit, right? Then you have this area right here called Edit, Mix, and Mix Edit, right? What you want to choose here is Mix and Edit. This option right here. This option ensures that the grouping that takes place, right, does not only apply in the edit window or the mix window, but it applies on both. You got what I'm saying? So when I create the group, right, you will, let me just click on OK there, right? When I create the group, now I'm in the mix window, you can see the group right here being selected. Very important. And something being selected or basically being highlighted right there at the bottom corner on my left hand side, right? You can see there it's written drum kit. So my group has been created and given A as a demarcation. If I move to my edit window, you can see it again right there existing. So whatever now I do in my edit window that speaks to the group will apply to all the tracks. And I'll show you what I mean. Now that I've created the group, I can now basically move my faders, as you can see, together by just moving one, right? I can also solo them as a group by clicking on one, or mute them as a group by clicking on one, right? I can also maybe track input monitor all of them, right, at the same time, or I can record enable all of them by just clicking on one, right? So remember that, guys, that's the main function of the group, is so that what you do on one can apply to all of those who are in the group. Now, let's say you do not want that to happen, but you've grouped them together. For example, let's say maybe I want to solo my kick on its own without having to solo the entire group. What do? I come basically here. I want you to pay attention to two areas right now, right? Pay attention to two areas. You can see this green color that's right here, right? And basically you can see this highlight right here. So I'm going to unhighlight it by clicking on it. You just click on it once, bam, and you can see it's unhighlighted. Also, what happened is the green color disappeared. Are we seeing that? Right? I'm going to highlight it again. I'm going to unhighlight it. Right? Another thing to pay attention to is this area right here. Right? The group template right here. Right? If I unhighlight it, it writes no group. Now that means that the group is inactive. Right? If you highlight it and it becomes highlighted, right, and you see green here, and you see the group name, which is drum kit, if you remember very well, we renamed it into drum kit, and you see this, right, this means the group is active. That means then all of them, or whatever I do on one, will apply to all. But if I deactivate the group, like I'm doing now, right, now if I press solo on my drum kit, only the drum kit will be soloed. If I move my drum kit fader, only my drum kit fader will move, right? And I'm gonna unsolo that and then activate my group. Okay. Now, another thing that you need to understand about grouping, very important, right, is that certain activities like soloing, right, muting, right, and moving of faders apply to the settings that you have made on your group dialog box. So let's go to our group dialog box, right? I'm just gonna unselect. I'm gonna right click. If you want to make any changes to the settings of your group, right, you go to the name of the group under groups. As you can see here, it's written groups. Let me just bring that up there so it will make it easier to see. You can see there it's written groups. That basically are the groups that you've created in Pro Tools. Currently, we've only created one group, which is the drum kit, right? And I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to click on modify. Modify allows me to edit the settings of my group, right? It also allows me to add, if I want to, so let's say I want to add the electric guitar into the group, bam, right? It's in. If I want to remove it, bam, I'm changing the settings of my group. Now, we spoke about certain functions that take place, like solo, mute, fader, whenever you're grouping. They follow basically what we call here follow globals, right? You can deactivate certain functions to not function with that particular group. You understand? Or attributes in this case. But globals in this case deals with whatever would work on all the groups that you've created with your session. So if you go to globals, for example, right? Let's say maybe I'm going to deactivate, let's deactivate solo and let's deactivate mute. And I click OK. Bam! Right? Now that I've deactivated solo and mute, my group is active, as you can see there, right? As you can see here, as you can see with the green that's there, right? My group is active, but now when I solo, only one track solos. Now that when I mute, only one track mutes. Let's even take it a step further. Let's deactivate our fader. currently my group is active. So when I move my faders, they all move, right? But I'm going to right click, modify, and let's remove volume fader, right? And I'm going to click OK. Now when I move my fader, only one fader moves. Do you see that? Right? That's how you can modify your groups. Basically change the settings or the rules that function with that group. So I want to activate those again. So let's go to modify again, right click, modify, and the name of the group. I'm going to activate volume. I'm going to activate mute. I'm going to activate solo. I'm going to click on OK. And now I can move the entire group again. I can solo the entire group again, and I can mute the entire group again, right? So just to remember again, how do we create a group? You select from the beginning. I'm going to create one for the electric guitars, right? From the beginning of the first track that you want to be included into a group to the last track that you want to be included in the group, it's Command or Control G, right? Then we're going to call this one electric guitars. Mind you, now these are two different groups, right? This is one group, as you can see. This is another group. This is a drum kit group. This is my electric guitar group. I don't need to group my bass because my bass is not going to be associated with anything else. It's on its own. I only have one form of bass in my song, right? Now I'm going to do my vocals also, and I'm going to call that lead vocals because that speaks to my lead vocals. I've colored them differently from my backing vocals. Then I'm going to do the entirety of my backing vocals. And I want to show you another advantage of having groups after I have done my backing vocals. Let's have that. Let's call that backing vocals. Yeah. Right. Now I've got my backing vocals. Now let me show you what another advantage this can come. Again, applies to session management. It's the reason why session management is such a great thing. I want to deactivate my group, right, by clicking this, so unhighlighting it. So my group is deactivated now. So let's say you have created a very nice balance in your mix here between your backing vocals. Those sound good when they're at that level. Those sound good when they're at that level. And that right there, I'm just creating a balance between my backing vocals, right? And I put that there and I put that there, and I'm happy. I'm like, ooh, that sounds amazing. But my backing vocals as a unit doesn't sound great, right? In terms of it's not loud enough, let me put it that way, in the mix, right? So now I can come back, activate my group. I've already got a balance between them as a group. So them together like this, they sound great, but they're not loud enough. So I want to make them loud enough as a group, right? Without having to shift them one by one. So then I have activated my group, and now I can just take one, drag it up. That balance still remains between the tracks, right? But I've lifted the entire group up, which makes it more audible. So now I've brought that entire good balance that I like so much more forward in the mix. Right. That completes the grouping within Pro Tools.